Let's blaze a trail with these stirring sterling dice. These bad boys are going to be absolutely lit. Now gold might be my OG color, but these are the AG. I thought you'd take a shine to gold and silver. They look good together. They are alloys after all. And I hope you're as fired up as me because these smoking hot dice are going up in a blaze of glory. It has been a hot minute since we have done a pun intro, and I'm very excited to bring that back. Today we're going to be making some silver flame dice for my cleric and an Eberron campaign. I finally get to be a player and I'm very excited. We're going to make shell dice today, and we're going to start by making blank insert shapes that will go inside our normal dice molds. They're just slightly smaller and they will be recessed inside via the numbers so that they sit kind of center in our normal dice molds. But we're just going to start with the blank shapes for now, so let's get this bigger mold out of the way and get working with the smaller mold. First things first, let's set out some parchment paper. You can fold the ends of it so that it sits a little bit more flat if you have the pre-cut parchment paper like I do. And we're going to use some Envirotex light resin. You can pretty much use any casting resin. I'm going to use about 40 milliliters total on this first set of molds here. Make sure, this is a question I get pretty often when I'm making dice and people have issues with theirs. Make sure yours either says to mix by volume or by weight. Check the directions for that, because if your dice aren't working, half the time that's the issue. Mix it for about 5 minutes or until your hands are sore and you have no lines in there. We're going to be making white inner molds because I want it to kind of look like marble on the inside. So we're going to use liquid glitter and this white paint. We're going to mix up 3 drops of liquid glitter. I don't want it to be super shiny. I just want there to be hints of silver and glitter throughout the entirety of these dice. So you can see there's not much here in the resin, so it won't show up very well, especially as we add a few drops of this white pigment paint. This is extremely dense white paint, so it has a lot of pigment in it, but I don't want to use something that will make it completely opaque. That's why I'm not using a common resin dye, because often that will just be a starch white, and that's not really what I'm looking for. I want to be able to see through it a little bit. Now it'll look like this, and we'll just leave that hanging in the air, and it's ready to pour inside of our molds. Again, I want it to have a slight translucency. I pop any surface bubbles before I pour it in with a lighter. You should probably use a heat gun if you have one. I just don't. And then I pour it into the base of my molds. You can see it's a little bit translucent here. You'll see that even better when it's all hardened up. And I put about that much resin. You could probably use even less than that. I see Reddit comments of people talking about my stuff all the time, saying you can use far less resin than Rybonator uses, and that's absolutely true. You do not need to use near as much as I do. After I pour it in, I wait like 5 minutes, pop any more surface bubbles, and you can see I've definitely used too much resin here. Even I recognize, yeah, this is probably too much. Just have it kind of bubble over like I showed originally, because if not, it's going to pour out like this. I generally find better results when I put excess resin like this, but everybody's going to find their own methods that work well for them, and this seems to work well for me. So after I get my resin in my molds, you could just leave it there because they're inserts. It doesn't have to be perfect, but we might as well put it in our pressure pot because we have one. Make sure we don't have any air bubbles that are going to be in there, and just make it perfect. So we're going to put it in the pressure pot at about 35 psi. We leave it in there for at least 24 hours. If you want perfect hardness, do 72. But these are the inner molds, so they don't have to go in for 72. These are just inserts. I'm going to do some painting on them, so we're going to leave them in there for 24 hours, and bada bing, bada boom, they're done. They're ready to be taken out of the molds. They're solid enough to work with to where we can reasonably expect not to damage them. And if you take them out at 24 hours instead of like 72, they're a lot easier to manipulate and get these little flashing edges off with just your fingers. Normally you'd have to sand those off if these were the final results, but again, these are just blank shapes that are going to be inserted into our other molds. I really like the colors on these and how they turned out. Again, it's a very slightly translucent white. I want it to kind of look like an opal stone that you can kind of see through, just like the corners or edges of stone like that. But now we're going to get into the meat of this project, which is painting these shapes. I'm going to use antique gold and chrome metal from Green Stuff World. This stuff basically is like a liquid mirror, and I'm going to paint it over this white. I kind of want it to look like ore, and you'll see what I'm going for here in a minute. And I'm going to stick my shapes down with this tacky stuff, or poster tack. This is my go-to product when I'm painting my Warhammer models. That way I can put them on the base without having to fully glue them down, and it doesn't damage anything or leave any surface residue. You can see it holds these dice on really well, so I put all 7 of my RPG set dice on my painting surface. That way I don't have to pick them up, and I can work on all sides except one at one single time. Now I pour out my paint, and you can see it really is like a liquid mirror. They have, literally liquid mirror products out there, but I really like this Green Stuff World paint. I've taken a liking to it in Warhammer, and I really like painting it on dice and numbers. It comes out shiny every time, and it stays shiny, which is hard to find in some of this kind of paint. Again, I'm trying to make like ores or veins in this. I want it to kind of look metallic, E. I mean, obviously, I'm using silver and gold paints, right? But I want it to look of the earth, like there's ores running through marble that was just carved out. My character is a silver flame cleric in an Eberron campaign, and his motif is silver, obviously, because silver and flame and fire. But because he's my character, he's also got gold. So I'm doing these silver ore lines, which is probably ideal, and I could stop there. And if somebody was a better painter than me, they can make them look even more like ore. I just do what's vaguely pleasing visually to me on all sides except the bottom one where the sticky tack is. And one problem that I noticed here is the paint's going to run because I didn't prime any of these dice to be painted. I could have probably made the resin out of nothing, could have dyed it not at all, and then primed them, and the paint would have stuck better. But I actually kind of like how the water, or not water, but the paint itself kind of flows into natural stopping points. I think that looks more organic, which is what I'm going for anyway. And so, because I'm me, I can't just leave it at silver, even though my character is a silver flame cleric. I gotta add gold. My character's name is Willem Acker. I think he's awesome. He's one of my favorite characters that I've ever played, and he's all, cleric-y. He's wearing white and silver, but of course he's mine. So he's got gold epaulets and gauntlets and things like that, and even his sword has gold on it because, of course. And I think multiple colors will look good on these dice. A little contrast never hurt nobody, and besides, my cleric trained to be a paladin before the Mourning in Eberron happened, and, just being a cleric is his lot in life. And that just makes him a little bit more flashy than a normal cleric, and so my silver flame cleric has gold in it. Whatever, Keith Baker, eat your heart out. I just kind of put gold on there. I'm not artistic enough to know what looks good. I put enough gold to where I'm pleased with having it, and then I take the dice off after it has dried overnight. Definitely leave this paint to dry for at least 24 hours before you touch it, or you'll leave fingerprint marks on it. Learned that the hard way. But then you're free to pick up the dice and paint that last face. That way you can connect any silver or gold or whatever colors you might be using to each other and make some seamless ore lines. Make sure you leave plenty of blank space, otherwise it's going to be crowded and you might as well have just dyed it that color rather than white or whatever backing color you wanted. And I know what you're thinking. These don't exactly look very good. Well, have patience, young Sith, because they are going to be greater than the sum of their parts. Or at least that's what I hope, because when I was doing this, I also thought, hey, these don't exactly look very good. But I'm going to stick to my plan and mix up some more resin to do the outer shell. But speaking of sticking to my plan, I immediately deviate. As I mix up some more resin to pour in as the outside shell, I pour off some resin because I had an idea. I wanted to just do this glittery outside shell, which is what I do. I mix up some resin, but then with that resin I poured off, just that little bit of excess, I mix up some white. I have this cool idea to do a kind of streak of white near the high numbers on my dice so that whenever I ink will pop out a little bit more and it'll look like this white kind of smear, or this ghostly mourning, if you've ever played an Eberron campaign, is kind of surrounding my dice. Now we get to use the outside molds. These ones have the numbers, and luckily the numbers kind of help hold the inserts inside the center of the dice. I'm going to take that white resin that I mixed up and pour just a tiny bit, the ever so slight amount, on the bottom face of these molds, which happens to be my high number, and then I pour the clear resin up the rest of the way. I only need to fill these molds about halfway filled, and I'm hoping that with white on the bottom, as I put these inserts in, the white will kind of, I don't know how to describe it other than swoosh up the sides and maybe look like a cool, slightly transparent white bit that will almost look ghostly on the outside, because my character has some backstory around this mourning event in Eberron, which is this just great gray ghostly wall around a country that he was about to go into before this just horrible thing happened. Look up some Eberron lore. Keith Baker's a genius, at least as far as his Eberron stuff goes, and I really, really enjoyed it. This is the first time I've played in a structured campaign that wasn't something homebrew that I or a friend have made, and it's been a lot of fun. Just like before, I left those in the pressure pot, this time for 72 hours, and kazow, we've got some completed dice, quote-unquote completed. We're like 60% of the way there. They look great. They obviously need some sanding to be completely finished. I have some lips on these. For some reason, these new shell molds that I have leave little lips on them, and by that I mean little raised surfaces on the one number that's on the top of the mold. Some of them are more egregious than others, but they all look like I can sand them away to get a flat surface, so I'm going to get out a glass paint that gives me the flattest surface I can possibly sand on, and to do my sanding I'm going to use Zona papers. They kind of work tried and true for me. They go from around 600 grits, like sandpaper, all the way up to a 22,000 grit paper. I wet sand so that any resin that comes up while sanding doesn't get in the air, and I don't have to breathe that in because that's not good for you. After sanding through the first grit, you'll see it's very matte here, but it will be glass-like by the time I'm done. I just got to get these raised edges off. While I'm sanding through the grits here, I just want to say it's nice to be back. It's nice to be making dice with you all again, and I'm just happy to share that skill with you.
Did somebody say Skillshare?
Oh, hey man, long time no see. It's good to see you again.
Yeah, good to see you. Shut up, do the ad roll.
Thank you to Skillshare for sponsoring this video. I've been using it a lot lately to try and learn some alternative resin techniques that hopefully I can incorporate into my dice making. If you haven't heard of Skillshare before, you're obviously new to this channel, but they're the largest online learning community. They have thousands of classes led by industry experts from film to illustration to productivity. Doesn't really matter. They can turn your hobby into a career or just give you a side hustle that you actually care about. You guys know that I've been using Skillshare for years, whether it comes to video editing or voice work, or I often go back for new resin techniques and mold making ones that I can translate into what I do. I really like this class, Create a Resin Geode by Katie Krell. I know it's for kind of creating a picture, but I think I can translate this into some cool dice making techniques, and you can obviously see the end result is gorgeous. They've got a bunch of new back to school style stuff here on Skillshare, smarter class categories, and you can even sort classes by the software or material that you have, which I find extremely helpful. Anyway, let's help each other out because the first 500 people to use my link in the description will receive a 1-month free trial of Skillshare. Get started today while I get back to making these dice. I say making, but we're really on the last step, which is inking or coloring in the numbers. I was originally going to do just red, then I thought, oh no, an orange and red gradient would be good. Oh no, a yellow, orange, and red gradient would be good. But anytime you add more colors, it doubles, or in this case, triples your work. And I thought, well, let's test that scheme out before I actually go through with it, because I don't even know if it's going to be all that good. These Vallejo game colors are extremely vibrant and pigment dense. I find them great for inking in numbers. And I tried it out here, tried to do a yellow to orange to red, and I thought, oh, that's pretty good looking right there. But maybe that was a fluke. I'll try it on another number, and you know, it's not all that great, right? It's not worth doing. Maybe I'll just ink them gold. Maybe I'll ink them silver. Let me try it on this 4 here. Let's see how this turns out. I wipe it away with my finger just to see what it's going to look like, and oh, that's good too. Okay, no, we've got something here. This pops so good on this white color. I just went ahead and did them all. There's a lot of excess yellow color on here, or red or orange from things that I had wiped away. And so I just take a tissue with some alcohol, isopropyl alcohol on it to wipe away any excess paint after they've dried for a full day. Now, I'm using a tissue here. You should use like a shop towel. That's the best way to go about it. But I like to use a tissue and then go back over it with a microfiber cloth. I got that tip from all of you so that I don't have any weird fuzzies or things sticking to the numbers. But man, did these things turn out absolutely gorgeous. I could not be more happy with them. At every step of the way, I was like, these are looking just okay, I should do something different here, but man, they turned out so much better than the sum of their parts. The inking was absolutely worth doing with this fire inking gradient from yellow to orange to red. I typically ink in gold, and so this was a change of pace for me. Gold typically pops really well, but here, so worth doing the other colors. Some of the numbers have tiny little bubbles on them. That can happen when you ink with brushes like I do. It's not worth going back over again for me. Some people like to do that, but I think I would mess up the gradient again. And man, they just pop so well. I was not expecting the numbers to stand out so easily. They're so readable. I love it. I also sanded really well. I never get points this sharp and defined. I do have some parts about the dice I don't like some of the inserts like on the D4 here aren't exactly centered well, and I kind of over sanded on some areas that didn't exactly get cleaned up, and there's some evidence of some lips still on like these D10s, but overall could not be happier with them, and at any distance that isn't up with a 4K camera, you can't tell. They also sound fantastic. Okay, I don't know if there's ever been a time in this channel's history where I've gotten 3 natural 20s while testing out the dice and absolutely no critical fails to go with them. These are truly blessed dice, and I'm very happy to be using them for the foreseeable future with my character. Willem Acker deserves his own custom dice, and they deserve to look this dang good. I'm really, really proud of these, and I'm really proud of the character that I'm working on. It's the first time I've gotten to play as a character in a long, long time, so I might put some information about him down in the comments for anybody who's interested in him, and also comment your favorite character that you're currently playing in your campaign. I really like hearing what other people are doing, and so that'd be cool, so that way we can all share this kind of collective experience. And also check out Eberron. Keith Baker's world is really cool. I like working on my own world, but I've never gotten to work on a kind of established campaign like that, so it's really fun. My DM's great, and I really enjoy the adventure that he's putting us on. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you really enjoy these dice. I'm going to be making some more for all the other players in the campaign in the future, and let me know some ideas of some other dice you might want me to try making. Like the video if you like it, dislike it if you dislike it. I want to hear that too. Make sure you're subscribed to check out some more content in the future. Kimberly, I can see your screen right now. I know you're not subscribed, so just go ahead and hit that button. Either way, I hope that you all have a fantastic day.